Welcome back to APAC North, and we are getting into the action right now. We've got Fnatic versus Sandbox for our first matchup of the day. Now, this is unusually, this is usually one of the matchups that we would be immediately looking towards on the schedule. We'd be at the beginning of the stage thinking, when do Fnatic and Sandbox play? But Fnatic, little bit of a difficulty so far this stage, so maybe not quite the matchup that we might expect. But Sandbox, Ollie, going pretty well so far.
Yeah, Sandbox look really good, and I think that this, is it a case where it's going to be maybe potentially their time? They're currently at second inside of the standings, and you think, get a good start, hit that good stride, hit that good finish, there's a very good chance that they will make it. I think one of the interesting additions here for Sandbox for me is going to be Good Boy, someone that they brought up from their sort of substitute bench. I think I might be right in saying that they were waiting for him to come of age before he actually got brought on into the team. But a bit of a personality, a bit of a superstar over there in terms of content, and obviously his numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, and him together with Arakazi coming from T1 and just basically being T1 star player. They've won this transfer window. They have two of the new best talents in the region, and they're just showing the individual performance. I just want to see them do the strategical depth of the old Sandbox as well, so you can have either tool to open up whatever obstacles you come against.
For me, for Sandbox, you've put it absolutely perfectly there, Fabian. They've won the transfer window. That is exactly what they've done. They've been struggling for form over the last couple of stages. That's one of the historic rosters of APAC North that we expect to be up at the top, and they've absolutely smashed it since they've made those changes. It's going fantastically well. They, of course, have some opponents in Fnatic. Fnatic undergoing plenty of changes recently, obviously picking up the former Guts roster, Japanese team now. Fabian, it's been a little bit of a struggle for them. I think that's fair to say.
A little bit is fair to say. I think they've been struggling quite a lot. Last stage it looked really rough. Their attacks were really poor. Last Playday, however, they actually won quite a lot of them. They won 4 in total, which is not something we're used to seeing. I think that Border might have been the correct choice for a map, but I still want to see more in other maps, because we're looking at the teams they've played. Yeah, we're looking at Damwon, which is something we kind of expect you to lose, but losing as heavily to a reject as you did is not something we want to see a good performing Fnatic do. So for now, all they need to do is just step up with their adaptations in their attacks and just keep trying to work out their issues. But last game, they played really well, and they should get the props for it, but now show it on every other game as well.
Absolutely. Yura and Light going big so far. You can see there the two top-rated players on Fnatic. There is, of course, the Mag question as well. We can't ignore that. He's now in Japan. He's, in position. There is the question of, will he come into the roster? At what point will that be? What sort of impact is that going to have? I'm sure he's going to be working in the background as well. We'll see what sort of impact that has over the remainder of the stage, of course. Now, we have got our map ban ready, so we can see exactly where these two are going to throw down. We'll see them coming in at the side. Ooh, it's going to be a Border X.
Okay, so Border is quite popular. It's certainly seen a little bit of play here. I'll be honest, I have had very little time to get my head around everything here. So in terms of maps, I was looking and blindly sort of expecting something like a bank. That's obviously been removed there by Fnatic. I know that that's seen a lot of play here. But there were some maps that really sort of surprised me in terms of how present they were. Border, however, I think it's a fairly reasonable choice.
It is a reasonable choice. I mean, Fnatic got their last win on it, so it's understandable why they want to go back. But I don't know if that's going to be a mistake or not, because we're looking at Sandbox and KAG. Both of those teams have very individually talented players. KAG's mistakes against Fnatic was that they went a lot alone. I don't expect Sandbox to make those mistakes. So it's hard to say if it's going to go either way. I lean against for Sandbox, just for the sake that I think they're a better team. And then if Fnatic can upset them, I mean, they need the same sort of individual performance to shine through with Light, like he had last game. I think after 7 rounds, he had 4 kills. And after that, he ended up with 17 in the end, or just about. That's the sort of arch you need, but you can't always rely on that.
No, like you say, it's going to be, I think they need those performances out of Yura and Light. We've seen their stats and how well they're playing at the minute, and you feel like it might be a struggle if either of those don't turn up. Like you say, they're not going to be able to maybe challenge Sandbox on an individual level in the same way, so they need that sort of teamwork coming through. For Sandbox here, you know, Ollie, they've had the previous footage to look at from Fnatic.
Yeah.
I think they probably come in here pretty well prepared.
They'll have their eyes wide open, I'm sure. Border's one of those maps where, very fortunately, you don't have to commit all too much to really getting inside and getting the job done. There's a lot that can be done from outside as an attacker, and especially if you've got a team that's starting to find a little bit of that strategy, find a little bit of that cohesion, it's really going to make those executes a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. Put Border in the map, and you like the way I think about it, take CCTV, put up your flank drones, go from there. That's literally the only way that you need to attack that map, and you can do it every single time, because you can always take control of CC, which leads to always getting control of Armory, and if they're playing the top floor bomb site, if you have CC control, you have angle through short to cut off all rotation between bomb sites, pick whichever one you want to attack. It's literally that simple of a map.
That simple.
Yeah.
It's just that easy.
Just click, just click heads. Just click heads, you win. But I mean, you know, looking at the map itself, Fabian, the defenders we know can have a lot of joy on Border if they can stop the attackers getting into the map. You know, is that going to be about a little bit of aggression for Fnatic today, maybe? Get right up to those lines and prevent Sandbox from getting established in CCTV, you know, getting those flank drones down.
That's kind of what they did last Playday against CAG. They were very much up in their face, and they kind of stopped them from entering. But at the same time, I think that even if that's the way you kind of win the map in defense, the attackers are still quite heavily in favor on Border right now. So for me, it's like a 4-2 split for attackers should be what you're looking for. If you get 3 rounds as a defender, you should be very happy.
I mean, looking as well at Fnatic, and I'm interested sort of from a player perspective from you, Fabian, like coming off a rough patch, and then they have the win against Cyclops last week. What does that do for you mentally now coming into what could be the most difficult game of the stage?
It depends really on what sort of team you are, and I think Fnatic is a team that's kind of under pressure, because we're looking at it, they have a big organization that's invested so heavily into getting into Japan that you have the pressure from the organization and your fans. For them to get a win, it's not going to be that, oh yeah, we have no more pressure on us. It's more that now we have pressure to win more. So for them, that's the sort of thing you get with the win. There are other teams that don't have the same pressure, and I think that Fnatic is not going to change much just because they get a win.
And I mean, looking at the other side, Ollie, you've got a Sandbox team that have had their ups and downs over the last 12 months. Obviously, you know, cycling through a couple of organisations. They seem to now have got themselves settled. But is it time now to say, draw a line under that? You know, we are where we are, and they need to start pushing forward.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you almost feel like you may be walking a bit of a tightrope at that point, because you've come under so many obstacles to get to this point of form, and they've picked up a couple of wins on the battles, which is great. But it's not a dynasty. It's not anything that, you know, to really start to build a strong foundation on. This is really only the beginning for them. So I think this could be a point for Sandbox where they need to not let themselves get in their own heads too much, and not let this form that they've seen influence how they're going to start to try and play. Whatever they've been doing, it's been working. They're obviously getting good practice in. They're obviously getting good reps in. That just needs to now translate more and more to find that level of consistency.
Yeah, it's about, do you want to be happy in Korea or do you want to be happy internationally?
Yeah.
And if they keep doing like they're doing now, they're going to be fine in Korea. They just need to take just another step to get international as well and keep performing there too.
Well, there we have it then. Our lobby is ready. We've got all the players good to go, so there is no more talking from us. There's going to be a little bit of talking from Emmy and Fresh, though, because they are your casters for this first matchup, and they're going to be taking Fnatic versus Sandbox, and we'll pass it over to them. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Tim Lush. Yes, it is us here, bright and early on a morning. Thank you also, Ollie and Demo, who you'll see a little bit later, for stepping in. We're a little bit short-staffed today.
Yeah, it's all gone a little bit wrong for us between visa issues and illness and whatever else, but we will get through it. And of course, Ollie and Debo coming out at very last minute and thrown into a region that is, you know, not their home region by any stretch of the imagination. I don't expect them to watch it every week. And, you know, Ollie, we've only seen Ollie so far, but doing a splendid job.
It's, as you put it on your tweets, he's a tall, dark, handsome version of you, which is mean to yourself. It's mean to yourself. You're both wonderful people.
Oh, thank you very much.
But he is very tall, dark.
He is very tall, dark, and handsome.
He's like 7-8 foot something.
Yeah, he's not just standing on the box. He is absolutely massive, by the way.
Like, it's not a camera trick that we have put it next to Tim. I don't know how tall is Fabian.
Fabian's not... I would say he's the similar height to me. I think he's maybe a little bit smaller, so like 5'10", something like that.
Okay.
Just for reference, if anybody needed to know.
Sandbox versus Fnatic on Border. Well, I think we all expect this to go one certain way.
Yeah, I mean, the curious thing about this fixture for me is that we expect Sandbox to win. No doubt about it. You know, the desk kind of prefaced as well, is that this team should roll through APAC North. With the exception of Dan 1 Kia, I would say that they are a top 2 team. But we've not seen them play border yet. It's a middle of the ground map. And Fnatic is a middle of the ground map for them, but they went and beat, I think it was Cyclops on it last week. So they have won their only game they've ever played on border, which was against Cyclops last week. 4 attacks, 4 defenses. It did go all the way to overtime. It did look a little bit close, but it's pretty much the only game that they've won all stage and, you know, talking all season at this point. So, you know, it's a map that they are more than comfortable with and clearly fancied going again.
It's a swing, it's a chance, and it's also finding ourselves hurtling towards the end of the split in the season now, and that's the most important part to play into this, because, you know, in EUL at least, we're still sort of early doors and days, and there's 4 spots for a big position. There's only 2 here, and we are getting closer and closer to having those names scratched off of anyone that could actually make the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not even just that there's 4 spots inside of EUL, it's that there's 9 playdays as well. Obviously, inside of APAC North, there are 7 playdays. So we actually, by the end of this game, these teams will have crossed the halfway mark of the league, and it really starts heating up. It's not like, as I say, EUL, where you get 9 chances, 9 playdays, 9 weeks. APAC North, only 7. So you really, what that means is that the points matters more. So anytime that you end up in overtime, as Cyclops did last week against Fnatic, and losing, dropping 2 points is absolutely massive. Even dropping 1 point in a win in overtime can be absolutely massive. So I think for Sandbox, they can really solidify themselves as a top 2 team. You know, they are in second place on 8 points. A clean win here would set them up in amazing stead to go through to the end of the season and be in them top 2 positions.
Technically, there is 12 points left to play for over the remaining 4 play days of the season, but with the distance that Sandbox could get from a clean 3 here, we would have our first teams scratched off. Obviously, Fnatic wouldn't be able to make the difference, I believe, with only the potential remaining 9, so it would then be down to Spear or Fav to see if they can try and pull any points, but today we might start getting our first teams, not qualified, but unable to. The pressure starts here over the standard approach, as you've seen it once and many times before. Towards the side of Armory, you have what is a pretty standard layout here, with Shyle actually playing the Nook down below in detention. A slow creep round, and not going to take the beepers, as that would sort of defeat the point of the Nook, but goes the slightly wider route.
Yeah, it's Nooks are going to see a lot of play, and I think internationally there's a lot of, especially in NA, talking about Nook and Nook bans and why certain regions don't ban, because Nook is so good in terms of getting in, especially with the prevalence of the up nades. And I'm going to say it because I know that Des and probably Easy hates it as well. I think it is Easy observing for us, so, you know, just wanted to annoy him in the morning. But the prevalence of them is that Nook can creep in below, as you can see, and then get those nades up onto any players as long as there are relevant information. There will be one going up from Shyle. It will just about miss the Melusi that's chilling in CCTV. Maybe needs a little bit better drone network and information to actually go for those nades and make them work.
Yeah, no real catch there. They sort of gave up the game of playing coy. Was, to be honest, when you're putting the pressure here onto Office and you only have over a minute left, you've got to start the broach and the breach. Light, they want to lean in to this. You can see Lily is the next to take a huge bit of damage. I'm going to assume that might have been from underneath. Shyle had rotated with a different set of grenades, both used. It's the ping round. There's a reveal on a player. There's a take. Azami entirely caught out. Nook goes for the rotate. They're not going to make sure they get caught in a refrag, but it's Arakazi that almost suffers next. Envy Taylor has the cover there, has that bit of support. Light is suffering next. It's the big breach onto the site. Archives is in lockdown. There's the players forced back onto the other side of the site. They at least get rid of one. Sirius trying everything to hold off, but the Sandbox execute comes clean.
Yeah, and that was pretty convincing, to be honest. And you've got to put that down to Fnatic's strategy, really, in my opinion, is that they didn't fight for too much map control.
Oh.
And they're taking a technical timeout within 1 round. And I think the big thing, the big point for me there was Fnatic didn't really fight for the map control. So when you're playing that Armory site up on the top floor, Armory and Archives, you've got to extend horizontally into CCTV to protect your armory room, and you've got to extend horizontally into office to protect your archives room. Now, Fnatic didn't really seem to do that, and they didn't really seem to play below, as we saw Shyle have a lot of success on the Nook below. So it's a really curious kind of strategy for me into where they were trying to hold, what they were trying to prioritize, because if you let the attackers have a footing in the map in border, and they can start going through their processes, there's really nowhere in sight that tends to be safe on that top floor. And I think we saw it there. It was really easy for Sandbox, once they had office control, to just breach the archives wall and then go in for the plan. And in the end, they didn't even get there because they just killed Fnatic, because there's nowhere safe, realistically, for Fnatic to play.
Now, this was called as a tactical, or it was called as a TTO. I'm assuming that's a tactical timeout. I don't have the bar on the top, so I just want to double check whether that is before I start to try and make points as to them being a team that's done a first round. Because I think I did this before. I think what I thought was called as a timeout wasn't, and all the points were irrelevant, and I felt a fool. So I'll just see if we can get some confirmation as to whether this is tactical or technical before we dig too deep. But Border, Sandbox did start to come with a bit of sharpness there as things went on.
Yeah, I think so. And I think just on the point of the timeout, if it is a tactical one, it might be that I suppose it won't even be that they've seen anything from Sandbox. It looks like we're on a technical pause, so I think it could be a technical one. Just based on what we're seeing here. The fact that we're seeing the overlay of the two teams rather than just one and the countdown timer. I think it's actually a technical
I think it
pause.
is easy. Maybe if I scream it easy enough. No, easy's probably busy if it's technical. Maybe that's the response. Like how we just try and disrupt our wonderful observers from doing the tricky work that they're obviously having to do. I think that operator icon in the middle.
Yep.
I like how when that came up, people were like, "Oh my god," in a fun way. Oh, the new operator's leaked.
Did we just accidentally leak the new operator that fixes all technical timeout in competitive
if that was
play?
the next operator. Just a developer. Just tech support.
Just running around as an engineer, just sorting the things back out as
It's
they
like,
happen.
yeah, you build all these gadgets, but like, you don't know what OS they run on. You haven't got any programming knowledge. Let me just, Osa, come here. Let me just fix your shields for you. No, jokes aside, it is technical, I think, is what I've been told.
Yeah,
So
it's been
we're
too long for it to be tactical.
We're slowly getting there. It is too long to be tactical. We will be back in momentarily. The first round went into Sandbox's favor. The first round was their drive. It was, well, there was free work for the Nook to do at first, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And like I say, it was curious from Fnatic, especially if they go back to that site again, in terms of the map control that they were holding, because they gave so much away to Sandbox so early on. You know, we saw Shyle have a lot of success. We saw office control taken within a heartbeat. So Sandbox, if they're allowed to, and that's a team that I wouldn't want, you know, if I was going up against Sandbox, especially on this map, my mantra would be to fight them at the border. No pun intended, but fight them at the border of the map. Fight them at the entry points to the map. Don't let them get a base established inside of the map. Don't give them office. Don't give them CCTV. Whichever one you want to fight them for it. And you'll win or lose the round based on that fight. Because if you let them have the map control they desire, they are too good. They're simply just too good in terms of setting up and execute, and then with the pure gun skill alone. And I think we saw that. It was basically a flawless round. I think it was Siru found that one kill. Had he not found that one kill, because he was traded out immediately after he found it, that would have been a flawless round from Sandbox on the first site.
I have confirmation.
Okay.
Easy. Stefan. Shown up. Tech. It's a tech pause. We know. No. We can sort of talk about that. It's a tech issue. So we'll hopefully get that sorted and be back in sooner rather than later. I guess the giveaway is that Euro and Lily haven't moved for the whole duration of this. So I assume it's on their end.
Maybe they're just playing a really patient game.
A really patient game.
You know, like the who can blink first, you know, because Easy does this to me a lot, actually. Easy, our observer, is he will stare at you and then try and not lose eye contact and not blink. So maybe they're just trying to do that with their cameras.
He does like to stare.
He does.
In like a platonic friend way. and a way to make you feel like, is there something on my face? and it's just easy. Just lost in your beautiful eyes, Jack.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't think he thinks that, but, you know, I think he's just trying to put me off a little bit. But yeah.
He's just confirmed that you are, in fact, beautiful.
Thank you very much, Easy. I appreciate that.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit back about the thing that you were saying just before this, which was free territory and what was handed over. And I think Office was probably the big part of that.
Yeah.
About the 1 minute 10 mark, you suddenly start to see that wall get popped open. Obviously, there's the pressure that was from the Nook underneath that was able to do a lot of damage to an alibi. But, you know, they kind of just ignored CC. They realized, well, it's going to take too much. And Office was free for them.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's curious. You just can't give away map control on border. The top and bottom of border is that it's a square map. It's completely square. It's very small. There are very few rooms that you can actually go on to defend. It's not like a villa, for example, that is a square map, but that is absolutely massive. And then the next thing that's curious for me is this site selection, because they've gone to Armory, which I would say is the third best defensive site. And then they lost that. And then they've gone to Customs and Supply, which I would say is the fourth best, i.e. the worst defensive site to try and hold on to. And the simple fact of the matter is that Customs can just be segregated from the attack by one external breach and one window, and then plants can be achieved quite easily for the attackers. Now, Fnatic, they're going to do quite a lot of vertical control above it. Obviously, Customs has the whole map of border has so much verticality on it. It's probably one of the most vertical maps in the pool. So they're going to try and hold on to CCTV and Armory and all the holes above site. But my problem with this is, at some point they will be given Sandbox map control. If Sandbox choose to just go laterally, i.e. horizontally, then it could be absolutely detrimental to Fnatic. They've opened up that first wall on the passport by Thermite breaching the door that also gets the wall, and then presumably they will go around and get the jail breach as well, which means two sides of site are going to be breached into Customs, and then supply is going to be cut off completely from the breach on jail wall and then the window.
Control. Over on the top of East Stairs, you can see they've steadied themselves around with the drones whirring away. Sandbox are happy to take their sort of time and their pace with their approaches. They know when to get the job done, and they know the jobs that need to get done. As you said, they were able to get that breach open very quickly, uncontested too. It's that little passport entrance that does belie any defenses that are on the wall around the corner. Something teams are steadily learning. The breach is coming once again over the top of Office. As I said, they're starting with this. It's a sort of flat bit of control, and they can try and apply a pincer on the opposite side, but with all the bodies that are stacked up inside CC, it makes it a little bit more dangerous. But the verticality is something you do need some control of, so they're going to have to be a little bit more direct, and over the top, the face and the bow of that big open seating area seems to be.
Yeah. There's a lot, like I say, it's a lot of control established, and they're going to go and clear out this top floor. Arakaze is probably going to be taking on the first engagement here. Seems to know that someone's in Armory as Euro takes a peek onto Shaul inside of CCTV. That's a good first pick, but you see how pressured he feels. He will get the fadeaway drop shot onto Static. So Euro's absolutely done his job and a little bit more there, and should have been punished for his troubles, but wasn't.
Arakaze almost caught the player that was trying to slip their way back up the main stairs, but it's actually a Razor Bloom that finds the end of MV Taylor. His camera's smiling, but it's Arakaze that's still got the work left to do alongside the side of Good Boy. They've been at least able to find one. Euro's taken a lot of damage, but it's worth the trade-off with the two bodies they're able to take of their own accord, but 40 seconds, and nothing else majorly done to the site that hasn't already been done at this point. A bit of a spray. Almost a bit of a glance and a chance at an Oryx that's drifting around. Fnatic know they don't need to overextend. They have themselves a little bit solidified, but the idea of peeking hatch is never easy. Hey, someone's on the second story is the bit of the spray reveal there, and suddenly Arakaze can't offer the support to Good Boy. There's more of a rotation. Zero finds Good Boy. Now it's just a single player left. They know exactly where they are. They have 10 seconds. They don't need to go any further. Arakaze caught out.
I'm taking everything I think I know about how to play border and throwing it out the window there, because I said that this would be the worst defensive site. And in my mind, logically, I'm absolutely correct in that thinking, but Fnatic made it work. I think particularly those first two kills on the castle, that fadeaway shot down the hatch, they were so impactful because border is all about those entry engagements and whether you win or lose them. Fnatic got the entry engagement, they compounded it with the second engagement, and then it's a 5v3. It doesn't matter how much verticality the attackers have at that point. If you've simply got more people that can then go back up and flank them, you saw right at the end there, 2 players up on the top floor contesting the Sophia, 3 people inside. You've simply got that numbers advantage, and you can play out from there. A really good round for me from Fnatic there.
I think that's the thing about Fnatic, is they have moments. It's sort of been that painful thing. If the roster is very well put together, and when they're under different names and players, well, they were a good roster. They at least had some big engagements, and then they sort of, I'm not going to say got into their own head, because it's kind of impossible to really know that unless you're in those comms, but they got a bit stuck in terms of the rhythm of not quite getting into the rhythm of the games that they're up against. They would sort of be blindsided by the quicker teams, especially up and comers like Reject or Fav, or against teams like this in Sandbox that are very controlling teams. They would just never really know the safer places to play and pull back. That round is some of the better play that we've seen from them against one of these teams.
They're certainly improving. And, you know, it's kind of hard to say, because this roster was a roster that I would argue should have gone to, you know, Sweden Major, should potentially even, you know, could have had a chance of going to the Major that was over in Charlotte in May. In terms of the old Guts Gaming roster, because they did look pretty good. They've, you know, subsequently joined Fnatic, not looked so great under that organization and that brand and that influence, and it's going to be a big transition period for them. And it's finally starting to, you know, one overtime win in stage 2, and it's finally starting to come together as we see Chibisu. He's going to hold on to his stairs with his life. Only 1 ADS to protect him here. If Sandbox put a lot of utility into this, it's going to be very hard for Chibisu to find any value whatsoever.
Well, he doesn't get finished by the grenade, but it's not going to be much longer that he is alive. They put a huge bout of pressure in. Series holding from underneath and is able to get a really cheeky free K onto Good Boy. And there's Zero with a second Shile. I believe that was on Passport, the player that was playing there before. Euro wants to go for the swing out. Static just has the cover. And obviously Chibisu is still down, but the pings show that, well, there's some awareness of the players that are trying to get the recollection here. Ciro's holding on. A couple of huge rounds for him, being able to keep this pressure hot, keep that castle, surprisingly the one that's biting into the approach here, and they just leave the player to bleed out on the stairs.
And this is the big thing from Fnatic. This is the big thing that they previously didn't do. If Chibisu was in trouble, previously nobody would have come to help him. This time it was Ciro, picks up a double kill for his trouble, and Chibisu gets a martyrdom from the grave there with the cap can. And Sandbox, I got to say, they're in dire straits. They've not got much map control. They're 2v3, and they've really got to try and figure something out. Once again, it's going to be Arakazi, and they've not got much information. They're face checking absolutely everything. Plus, they've only got a minute to play with.
Well, the minute is going to start to steadily become a much more ominous 30 seconds, and you can see they're aware of that, the drive. And the pings towards the player that's tucked him around on the corner. And I said before, Fnatic didn't truly overextend. They kept a cool head and cool hand, which is the important thing to do against a team like Sandbox that can be very controlling of the space. And they're trying to just recollect some of that. There's that ominous 30 seconds I talked about before, and they've been able to get a little bit of drone intel, but the big rotation on the kit is the worry. MV Taylor has to be successful on this first engagement, and they're not giving it to him. They're holding off and waiting until they think they're in a lockdown, because they do have the spread of the 3 players. Just didn't see split on the one to the side. Wants to take the hot hop. It's going to make that audio, and there's the pre-fire. There's the first fight. It's his. Swings for the second. The flashes go around, but it's Light that suffers on the rotation. Arakazi with the kit in only 5 seconds. They're throwing everything they can at the door there, so Arakazi can just try and get it stuck in. The spray over the top, watching the rotation, expecting them to come, but they don't. It's from the other side. They get the plant down. There's Arakazi finding one. They just slip their way out the door. Look for the second. The fight over onto Light, who's just sort of dabbling and dancing either side. 30 seconds, and he just sees the tail end, the wing clipped of Arakaze, but they're still in it. They have a lot more bullets, and they make him count.
And that's why we consider Sandbox one of the best teams in this region. Even when the odds are stacked against them, 2v3, minute to go, limited information, they simply find a way to win. Don't think the diffuser plant location was exactly where they pre-planned it out in a 5v5 engagement. That was just raw FPS based on the 2 players there, just playing the situation that they saw in front of them. Got the one guy into sight, got the plant down, and that post-plant, you know, I don't know, it's tricky because Fnatic shouldn't have lost that, right? Maybe played a little bit too passively in that 3v2. Didn't play enough off crossfires, particularly to protect the player inside of Tellers. And, you know, that's a round that they really should have won, but did end up losing in the end from Fnatic's point of view.
It was to the wire. It was Sandbox. They took a little bit of time, they took a little bit of space, they recollected themselves, and MV Taylor getting that very important first swing in. He knew exactly where at least one person was. And he had vague ideas of the second. You could see him watching the rotate and got caught out by the wrong side of it. It happens, based on the expectation of the players, but I mean, still, that lead-in was the most important moment. If that hadn't gone into this favor, or if Fnatic had responded quicker to that, I mean, it took a little bit of a dive there from Arakazi with only 6 seconds left to try and get that kid down.
I can't remember precisely which player it was, but there was a player playing inside a bathroom that realistically could have played the Teller's external window. So as soon as that hop-in happens and the Dokkaebi's playing for the kill onto the castle, you swing on that contact, right? And that's what should happen. And that's how you play Crossfire. And that's where Fnatic have improved but have been caught lacking at times, and it's that one simple thing that would have lost or won the round for them. Unfortunately, they've lost the round. Now they're actually going to go on a full site rotation, so they started off with Armory, then went to Customs, then went to Bathroom Tellers, and now we've ended up at Vents Workshop, which means they're defending all 4 sites against Sandbox, keeping them on the toes. Of course, they didn't have Customs available, but they did have 3 sites to choose from. 2 they'd previously defended and 1 new one. They've gone for that new defensive site.
Once again, over the top here, and that bit of a spark and a start over the side of CC. They're looking for pressure and control here onto anyone that might just be drifting around onto the control of the verticality. It is traditional. It is that standard take and the stand hole. It's the lockdown of Armory and seeing what you can do to break it through. The smoke gives you a second to pull back. They have the ADSs and obviously a couple of fancy knives if they want to try and buy themselves a little bit more time. And the first of those is going to start to swing its way around. Destroys the ADS, I believe, there, but at least it gives them a little bit more of a swing.
Yeah, it's going to come under a little bit of pressure here. You can see the drones coming in, but the one thing that Azami is really good for is denying those lines of sight and making it really awkward for attackers to push in. So I'm not surprised to see it is the Azami that's playing up there. You can already see Arakazi is really struggling to get an angle and actually uses a nade to end up taking away that Kiva barrier. That is not a nice use of utility because it can be just completely and utterly replaced. Will try to look for some toe shots, won't actually find any, and will potentially look for a deep nade onto Yura, who maybe stays too long and does pay with his life.
Well, now with the pings and that opening kill, Yura did everything they can to try and buy themselves some time, but time is something that Sandbox has always generally been good at having that lockdown on. The control has been theirs, but Chibisu actually bites back. They're able to get a kill with that pretty hefty gun in the right hands, and that sort of confidence from Fnatic is something they need to make sure they continue as 30 seconds starts to get close. The smoke's round on towards the plant corner. We hear the first go off. Good Boy suffers an AC run out, but it's a trade back and forth. The kit goes cold. Finally, they find one more, but it's sprayed, it's blinds, and it's a little bit of a retreat up to the top. Good Boy is going to see if he can get the stick as they go for the vertical retake here. Lily over the top, looking around. Is there the player? There is. There's the take, though. Lily gets it a little bit too late. Stop the kit. Zero with the C4, and Shile bites back. Another 1v1 post plant. This time, the Jaeger is trying to step up against the Zove to see if they can try and succeed where their team didn't last time. Drops the drone and goes for the slow creep and pressure around. They know they're waiting for this audio, know they're waiting for the call, and they know there's about 20 seconds. They've got to try and make every single one count. Lily, is he holding it? Is he sticking it? Does he? No! No!
How? How is he not even... Oh my days, somebody should know. There should be a drone. Even just sound alone. Send a couple of footsteps towards the main door, and then the defender has to pop off it, and nothing there from... I think it was Shile, I can't remember who was last alive, but absolutely nothing. Just holding the angle, expecting the run out, and Lily, pros never fake, and that is the reward for why pros never fake.
That was it, wasn't it? That was just... You expected something.
Yeah, it was just nothing.
I mean, it's one of those things where you have to go back and see, what do they have in their pockets? Do they have any stuns? Do they have anything? And did they just assume they had audio? It sometimes happens. And apparently it sometimes happens on the grandest stage.
It's unfortunate, and I think situationally, we can look back and we can talk about how that was a misplay and maybe could have moved, but also the positioning. The positioning could have been an upside down rappel on the window, and it's almost impossible to lose that at that point because there's no way the diffuse is even stuck. if the defender knows that there's an upside down rappel going on, because it would have been, the defuse would have had to have been in full view of the window on the upside down rappel. So a significant misplay there by Sandbox. They should have won the round. So that's another round won that they, another round lost that they should have won. And I think from Fnatic's point of view, they're very fortunate because they didn't fight too hard for the top floor. They just had the Izami upstairs. But there wasn't much utility investment into the Izami. There was, you know, a little bit of a breach. And then there wasn't any Jaeger ADSs. There wasn't anything like that to protect the Izami. And we saw the nade kill coming out. So worrying stuff again from Fnatic, because they should have lost that, but for an absolute hero play on the sticking of the defuse.
I think that's it as well, is, you know, as I said before and during the execute, or the defuse even, he knows how much time he has. He knows he doesn't really get many chances at playing that gamble of how long can I hold on to this and can I bait the player to get into this situation. Well, he made sure it counted. He stuck it. He had the confidence in it. There was calls that came through from his team where he was just trusting his audio a little bit better than Aragaz has trusted theirs. Either way, previous round, is it going to be something that costs Sandbox in the later throws of the game? Envy Taylor suffers next. They've obviously been able to use some of their hard breach before. They don't entirely need the ace to stay alive, but it's probably preferential.
Yeah, I think so. You can, especially on this site, normally you don't see a too hard breach set up on border, but especially on this site, you can manufacture so much pressure with the breaches horizontally and laterally. Arakazi is going to make his way in from office, and once again, we saw this the last time that Sandbox attacked onto the custom site, is that they cleared from the office top east side across with a view of clearing out CCTV, and the same thing happened there, is that Fnatic managed to find the entry kill, and it will be Shao that goes down, which is really unfortunate. Fnatic at this point now just play their lives because there's only a minute 20 left, and they've got so much time, and they've got the entry kill.
Going for the swing round, Arakazi is able to find light and bring the body balance back in their favor. There's another trade out. It's this very quick, aggressive game that they keep playing between the two teams of just responding to the deaths of each other. There's always a fight, and seemingly they keep happening in different locations. Good boy. Caught out the rotation there of Yura. Tried to go for a hop over the little box, but here is the 3 versus 2. They have that vertical control. Last time it was very much swapped fates. Last time they had a 4 versus 2 against them, and they had barely any time. They have a little bit more this time, but it's making it matter. Siru has had a huge game so far. Lily's had a couple of moments. We've still got to try and get that kit down. The breach comes through onto detention. Lily's watching the hatch. There's not too many ways to get a direct route through into the site from the top. They've still got the awareness, though, on the holes either side.
Problem is that there's 2 breaches, there's 2 hatches, 2 breaches, and an external window, and so many angles to be held. Siru will get taken down, and it's now all on Lily in the 1vx, will get taken by Envy on the hatch, and once again, there's just so many places that you cannot play. There's verticality, there's breaches, there's hatches, and when you're in that numbers disadvantage, it is so hard to play as a defender, and that's why the numbers advantage, that round there shows why the numbers advantage on border is just so crucial.
Oh, entirely. I mean, it was often cited as being the new coast when it came into the pool in terms of swapping it out, but just that trade game, that net that you have to throw and cast around the map to have yourself ready to respond to what becomes very quick, very biting, aggressive fights.
We're going to see a movement through to bathroom tellers now, and I think rightly so. Fnatic probably got away with it, probably had a little bit too much confidence in that custom site from the last time that they defended it, because realistically they probably should have lost the last time they defended it, but for Siru getting a massive 2k. So they will be punished on customs, and therefore they will move through to their site choice of bathroom tellers. Now, they should have won bathroom tellers the last time they played it, but they lost it in a 3v2 scenario. And that, to me, says to them that they can go to this site. They can make it work. They just need to play that late round so much better than they previously did.
Fnatic a 3-3 half here on the defense. I mean, pretty good. You'll see a lot of teams lead in very well on their attacks on this map. You'll see a lot of teams take a lot of control. It gives them something to build on. It gives them something to work behind. It gives them a lot of breathing room and a lot of chances at different sites. It's always the most important part when you're trying to drive against a team like Sandbox, is keep pressuring them across an entirely flat board. Here though, Sandbox, they might still be able to get themselves into the 4-2. The round that coulda, shoulda, woulda been could be, as I said, a bigger problem later on, but for now it's still this. The one ahead of them, the approach that they can try and pull together as they size an eye up and start to put pressure. No, actually pull back with the concept.
Yeah, look, Good Boy's going to try and take control of top east stairs. Will be stopped by a mute jammer, unfortunately. And the last time, if you remember rightly, is Chibisu was actually playing top east stairs, got taken out by a nade, and it relied on Siru making a massive play from verticality underneath. Now, that pressure from the defenders is not going to be there this time. Sandbox are going to be allowed control of top east for free, with the defenders choosing to play a little bit more reserved back inside of office and archives kind of area.
Trying to find the spray, trying to find the connection, but also the concern of a Fnatic player that might pop up. But it's Good Boy finally finds Chibisu as that opener. Yura's going to see if they can lock down some control over break, hoping that the player goes for the swing with Lily underneath on the Valve, maybe offering some support. Actually not. The C4 pops off, as does Arakaze. Finds Siru, and Yura tries to find a way out the door with Good Boy's blood on the end of his gun. Another player pops around the corner, and he still somehow slips out of it. Shyle doesn't quite get the full catch there. They've been able to get that vertical control, and they have a minute 20 now to build with it.
And that's the thing, it's a 5v3, it's vertical control, minute 20 as you say to build, and they've got a player outside the teller's window, which means when this verticality comes in, you want the defenders to run around like headless chickens, and then when that's happening, you want to punish them laterally. So that's why you're seeing one on the teller's window, one at bottom east stairs. The one at bottom east stairs, Arakaze, will actually just get a straight up kill with no verticality involved, and realistically, 5v2 is going to be so hard to play out for Fnatic here.
Well, that's it. Now it's just Light with 1 HP. No dreams, but sent to sleep. A 4-2 ending on a flawless. That's the Sandbox that we assumed to see at the beginning. And it's a Sandbox with a very good bout of control there, just to take them over the turn of the half into the second split. Still, it's not the most surprising result in terms of any two teams that you stack up on border for the attackers to have that little bit extra momentum. Now is the true test of Fnatic, because to be honest, attack is usually where they're tested the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they played last week, we were going into this saying, why would Fnatic go to border? Because their attacking win percentage is absolutely horrid when you look across most of their maps through stage 1, stage 2 this year. It's been pretty rough from them, particularly on the attacking front. Now, border is known as an attacker-sided map, which means you have to win your attacks. A 2-4 defensive split isn't too bad. A 3-3 is good. A 4-2 if you're a defender is amazing. But last week against Cyclops, Fnatic did manage to find 4 attacks. Obviously, they managed to find 4 attacks here. We will be going to overtime. And I'm wondering just how much that one missed round from Sandbox might come to hurt them should Fnatic be good on the attacks. Because remember, Fnatic stuck a defuse in a 1v1 scenario. The Sandbox should have absolutely won 100%. It was unlosable, but they managed to lose it. If they'd have won that, that would have been a 5-1 attacking split for them. And it would have been much smoother sailing.
I mean, that's it. It's those missed opportunities. We've seen those make a team fall apart. And I don't really think that's Sandbox's game. To be honest, they're a team that's taken knocks. And it's one of the things that we talked about with them before, is their reign of control was during the period of time where there wasn't big international lands. They didn't quite have that true test of them when they were at their technical strongest. But I think it sort of hardened them in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're a top team. We need to test that internationally, I think, but genuinely, and especially across APAC North, they are a top team. Good work straight away on the Flores drone, getting rid of that utility, getting rid of that bulletproof. Emmy Taylor, unfortunately, not destroying the ICE Rotero just enough, and there was still a little bit of soft wall that the Rotero drone was able to use. But look at the compare and contrastion. Look how much Sandbox are putting utility-wise into CCTV and into that horizontal extension. Arakaze will win the first engagement out onto towards Chibisu as well, which even just compounds Fnatic's woes.
Well, there's the ping and the player, and there's the pop in with the pre-fire, and there's the Finker doing what Finker does. Yura's looking for the next fight. They don't want to take the Goo out just yet, but the cover started to come through onto the side of break. They take Envy Taylor, who was playing a very aggressive position that he knows was a do or die, but there is the player in detention underneath. They still have some of the threat that they might be able to lay onto anyone that gets in that lock-in. I'm not sure if it was Shyle. It was, and there's open hatches, and it's an Oryx, so it's always a problem that can come to bite them later. A minute 20, and with some of the work done on the soft wall and the arena gates to be met, they're trying to reconvene, recollect how they're going to go for the approach. Down 90, the drone out towards the half wall. It's Arakaze with the magical glasses that's going to see if he can try and lock it down. The ping's on the player that's playing around 90, that extra swing, but a big rotate comes through. Seems like they're picking up sticks and hitting archives instead.
My big curiosity here is actually there's no C4s on hand, so if you're going to play players below, they need to have some impact, and you would expect that to be explosive impact. There's no C4s, which means Sandbox, they're just going to have to front this up and fight it on every single angle.
Well, every single angle is starting to at least materialize into only a couple. Fnatic, they're able to find one more pick. They remove the Aruni of Static off the board, and Arakaze still tucked in on the half wall means they can't quite get that drive and plant that they want. The Aruni gate also still together in tandem, a little bit more width. They don't need to throw themselves out here. It's going to be the double stack. And with the grenade in pocket, there's the reveal, the player, the pop-up, the spray round, the connection. There's one. And the grenade, they're able to slip their way out. The second drives in, gets caught out. Good boy with the triple. Looks to try and swing peek Akali. Suddenly, the entire force and focus of Fnatic has fallen. The good boy tucked behind that wall. One more showing. One more Arakaze. And another Sandbox round.
And that is, unfortunately for me, Fnatic doing Fnatic things. They've got a drone, they've got a player trapped in half wall. And I know what Fabian's thinking right now. My Ranky stack could deal with that half wall player better than Fnatic just did, unfortunately for them. And in the end, they had a nade on hand, by the way. They had utility to move that player out without having to peek him. One player goes in, two players goes in, and then suddenly Akali joins the party, and then the third player goes in, done. And that's the big problem that Fnatic have. You know, they've been somewhat good in the rounds that they've won. They've looked okay and competitive, but ultimately when the push comes to shove, they lose the numbers advantage too quickly. And then also, when they do have the numbers advantage, when they are looking okay to front up an attack, they simply cannot refrag each other and cannot move people out of positions, and they end up going in one by one to try and do so.
Sandbox. 2 rounds separate them from the full 3 points. And currently, with this angling, they would find themselves locked in, for now, to first place. And I believe, statistically locking out Fnatic's chances at getting to the major. It may depend on one of the results today, but we'd have to run the numbers later. That's not our job, Fresh. We're casters.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a caster now. I can get off the desk. I can leave that to XR Troika. Basically, more or less. Fnatic regulation loss. They're not going to Berlin. Sandbox regulation win. They've got a more than 3/4 chance of going to Berlin. So, you know, it's very, very good for Sandbox, very, very bad for Fnatic. But also in the overall table. Because Fnatic, they were taken over last week. They have been taken over, and they are in that relegation dogfight of being at 10 points only. They're below Fab, they're below Reject, and they're only 1 point above Spear, who will pick up points across this stage at some point. So Fnatic, they really need these points to avoid relegation come the end of the year. It seems unfathomable that Fnatic as an organisation and as a roster that finished so well in 2021 when this roster was under Guts could even be talking about relegation at this point.
MV Taylor dancing his way around. He has been able to find a pretty good rhythm and momentum over the past few play days of just getting into the aggression that can be offered when he found himself a little bit stuck in roles of support previously. Now he's been able to try and find himself a little bit more aggressively flexible in terms of trying to do this, put pressure back into the opponents ahead of him. He was stacked up on the swing door before, and now he's stacked up down in the corridor, waiting just for a head to drift a little bit wider.
He loves himself a 1v1 entry engagement, doesn't he, Taylor? It's always been an asset and a liability of his, and he is a luxury player from that point of view. He's that he can cost teams, he can cost his team when he takes those 1v1 engagements. And Fnatic, look at the map control from minute 30 established. They've really not gone for too much. They're choosing to go more of a direct to site if they can, and I'm wondering if this will cost them in the end because they won't have taken anything vertically.
Well, Light gets a good scrape onto Arakaze. He's pulled themselves a bit further back and even further back. There isn't many bodies on the site, and maybe that's the reason. That's what Fnatic has read here, but MV Taylor with that wall open still has a swing and a soft route through. There's sprays, there's pressure, there's a take over the top. Euro finds one, Shibisu doubles it down and takes care of MV Taylor. Arakaze at least stops it, and Shile tucked in a corner gets a huge kill. There's one more player inside CC and breaks. Somebody is trying to make a route up that east stairs as well. Caught the drone and pulls themselves a bit further back. There it is. The swing, the whip, the catch, and the destruction, but not confirmed. And Lily is able to get it the swing round there. As I said, the player that was previously in CC, it slowed the approach though. And good boy, the man of the moment last time, wants to see if he can try and do a little bit more, and he does. Cleanly takes the head off of Chibisu here. The final approach, the pings on the players on just the door of the site. They don't have full awareness that the kit's going down though, and this could be costly once again. That position has been something that has bit them. A post plant, 2 versus 2. Good Boy at least gets one more. They have the pings on the player. The slow creep round. Lily is all that's left. They could try and push him. Obviously there's no way they're getting to that kit. Unknown, uncontested. The pop up, they know exactly where he is, and they know exactly how to deal with him.
And that's the big problem from not taking out any vertical whatsoever from Fnatic. Sure, you can go horizontally, sure, you can go laterally, you can work your way in, you can get yourself a plant, but ultimately the positions that the defenders were able to take, particularly the position inside of Blue, inside of Workshop from the Valkyrie there, wouldn't have normally been allowed. If you've taken vertically from Fnatic's point of view, you've probably killed the player playing there and denied all of that positioning from the defenders. That was the swing round that got the kill on the planter in the 2v2, and from there on out they've played a 2v1. So Fnatic, whilst they did look okay, they did get to a plant position. I don't like that approach from them, and Sandbox played it absolutely perfectly. I think they'd have liked to have kept a few more lives up, don't get me wrong, but they played it really well in terms of fending off that very weak top floor attack from Fnatic when it did eventually come.
Sandbox, 1 round separates them. They've been able to thread their first 2 defenses together. Fnatic, they don't want to use their attack timeout. They don't think it's something that's going to help them as of yet. They might want to see if they can try and get one. Well, to be honest, they have to. There's no other option they would have. Obviously, if this round isn't theirs, it's game over.
Yeah, it's kind of rough, but the one saving grace, in my opinion, is that they will be attacking onto customs. I'm not sure why we're seeing so much customs, because, you know, the site events workshop is available, but I suppose it is absolute preference. The one thing that Sandbox will do is they will defend every inch of this map. You can see walls going out in office, break room, site. They're basically, doesn't matter where the site is, we're going to fight Fnatic absolutely everywhere that they can. They're going to try and reinforce CCTV, particularly with the use of this army and the rotates. You can see these army keep barrier on the break room door as well, and on the 90, so almost like false reinforcements there, because clearly they've used all their other actual reinforcements, because this room that Envy Taylor is defending is directly above site. So this is the one that you want to fight for the absolute most if you can.
Envy Taylor still playing this game he loves to, of being a little bit exploratory. There is steady drones that are whirring and whirling their way closer. Nobody has been so direct. To be fair, with Fnatic, they've been pretty solid at getting that opening body, but as you pointed out before, the lack of control on the rest of the map is something that came to cost them a little bit later here. The pressure into detention as that early open, as they're still trying to get a little bit more of the control over the top as well. The verticality is nothing that's going to slip away from them this time.
And I think you're seeing just a difference in approach. The fact that the passport wall wasn't opened by Fnatic, they decided to open the door instead, and then they're going to kind of half go laterally, half go vertically. Even Euro is just on the own challenge and top floor there, as the rest of the Fnatic players look to work in horizontally. Just shows that it's going to be difficult if they don't pay an appreciation to verticality on border, because realistically, once the attackers can stay, defenders can stay up above the site, they can deny pretty much every plant spot you want to try from vertical. So you do need to attack at the very least CCTV.
Good boy. What are you up to? Well, a C4 underneath, apparently. I don't know how close Lily is. Do they know Sirius putting the kit down? No, is probably the answer. Light is going to get that early kill, and here we go. Suddenly, they're kind of handed a bit of a freebie here. That confidence is Sandbox massively punished. The exploration that they had, well, they're kind of being proven where you've got to keep at least one eye and a feeler down onto the site itself. Envy Taylor at least gets one back, but you're looking at less than 30 seconds now for them to go for pretty much an entire retake onto the site itself in a 4 versus 2-1. And it's probably not much soon after. I'll count that down to 0. 15 seconds, shy of all that's left. They have all the breaches, all the angles, and he can't even get to the kit in time. Fnatic absolutely punished Sandbox's lack of awareness.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was saying is you cannot go horizontally because the defenders will have vertical above it. And then as the plant's going down, our wonderful observer Easy shows us above where the plant was going down. What have Sandbox done? They've made absolutely no vertical above one of their very default plant spots on that particular site. So Fnatic, great opportunistic there, spotting the fact that they could get away with a plant. There was a reinforced wall to the metal stairs, there was no vertical above the plant spot that they went for, and they managed to get one guy in covering the planter. And realistically, you got to say, that's a massive misplay from Sandbox, but it's a massively well spotted opportunity for Fnatic, and they took it well.
It was a surprise, and one that you can see has taken Sandbox a little bit. They're taking their attack time out. They're having a conversation of like, okay, Rain's got a little bit loose there, and everything got a little bit wide. Let's bring things back round, because yeah, as you said, they didn't have the vertical, they didn't have the awareness of the kit, they didn't have the most important part, which is a focus on what your opponents are doing. It's all well and good being alive and doing your own thing and running around the map, but there's also an objective to this game.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the map choice for them probably wasn't the best. And we will see now that they will completely just change away. They will go to Armory, and they will have used that technical timeout tactical timeout. That was a pause. That was a team called Pause. They will use that tactical timeout to talk about what they were going to do on Armory, what they saw last time, and how they're going to do it better. Because if you remember last time to Armory, it involved a significant misplay from Fnatic, with 3 people not being able to kill one person in half wall with utility in hand. And I think Fnatic, you know, they might make the same mistake twice, but Sandbox don't want to be the ones that rely on that happening. So they need to just have a quick chat about how it's going to go, how they're going to get themselves over the line. They seem to have done that, and they will, you know, hopefully play this round a little bit better from their point of view.
Okay, Sandbox, you've had a conversation, and I guess you hope you've had a revelation of like, we cannot just entirely throw this to the wind here. It's the chance now for them to still lock it out, and sure, Fnatic can try and claim that final 3 rounds, but it's not going to be easy. We've seen Sandbox take the flawless rounds, and we've seen them have full control, and now we're back towards the site rotation. We're back towards where it started, and to be fair, what we saw here was, as you kind of put it, there was a chance for Fnatic to do it, and then they did Fnatic things.
Yeah, this keeper barrier, if it went properly, as unfortunately it won't, I think MV Taylor's trying to get one that explodes outwards there to give him a line of sight to actually get across and peek out of the door, out of the hole on the reinforcement. Anyway, as it won't, he will just play CCTV, might wait for it to regenerate and then go for it again, to be honest. He will be the first bottle call. If you remember last time, the Finker jumped in, it was Yura onto him, just jumped in the CCTV window and took the Legion. He was playing Legion at that point, took the Goo Man and then just basically won the gunfight. So MV Taylor needs to be cautious that that same aggression might come out. He won't have the knowledge of the Goo Man going off this time, so needs to be very careful.
Well, he's going to get himself a little bit more solid, but there's still an angle, and the drone rolls up to get the pings. It's Yura that actually finds Good Boy on the opposite side instead of the initial take here onto MV Taylor. They've been able to at least get some of his support structure. Now they can try and focus the play, but there is still a player underneath. Again, I assume it's Shyle. It is running around with that Oryx. They might be able to cause some pressure onto the hatches, but that's really it. As you said, no C4. Arakaze, he is 15-4. He's having quite a good game. And he's in the power position that was Good Boys previously.
Yeah, and the upnade is going to come in from Chibisu below. They seem to have a yellow ping, but it will just about miss, only doing chip damage to MV Taylor, who seems absolutely unfazed by it, knows that he's been held from multiple angles, and therefore will just choose to be the bait for his team. You can see Static is trying to rotate and trying to help him out. He's going to get himself back into that same position, another keeper barrier of protection, and this represents a huge problem for Fnatic, because they can't go through their execute whilst MV Taylor's alive. Will get taken out, but with only a minute to go, Static getting a refrag as well. That's not the best for Fnatic, especially from timing purposes.
Oh, Shyle took the run out on the breach that was opened up for the upnade before. And that's it. The kit is cold. 45 seconds. They have the time to go for the recollection if they want to. They're still going to try and put some of the pressure because they started the motion in the ocean. And, well, you may as well at least try and capitalize it. You knew where the Oryx was. It's knowing where the other players are that became that important bit of a cost. Yura, no more charges to get any more health in what is a pretty battered body at this point. Gonna need somebody else to get rid of the Aruna gates here. They obviously have lost the ace. I'm not entirely sure if the entire breach was able to get off. They got an angle, and that's costly.
Yeah, absolutely. The XQ is going to come in here, and it's just going to be a push through a doorway, a push to nothing. Arakaze finds one, Arakaze finds two. Diffuser's called. It's all going to be up to Light at the top metal stairs. Will get taken out, and that is Fnatic, unfortunately, falling to Sandbox, who were absolutely the better team on the day. Rightly so, Celebrate, boys, because you have taken one step closer to that major in Berlin.
That's it. One step closer, 3 more points. Fnatic, unfortunately, their journey towards Berlin is kaput, but still, moments to be taken away. Moments are a team that we still have to just keep saying are steadily improving.
Yeah, improving. They were competitive inside of rounds. I think strategy-wise, there was a bit lacking today, especially execution of that strategy. There was a little bit lacking. But it's one, dust yourselves off. That is a significantly hard opponent in this league, and go again next week.
Well, that's it for us. We'll throw it back after a quick break to the desk with the Jolly Green Giant and their 2 little assistants. See you in a mo.